Alright, so this is a strange and new take on libertarianism and the COVID lockdowns. I had no idea it was libertarian to advocate for shuttering businesses and forcing people to stay indoors and forcing people to wear masks and forcing people to stay separated and imposing government limits on how many patrons can enter restaurants and shops and whether or not you're allowed to eat outside or inside and how your family must use your home's bathroom during Thanksgiving. I had no idea that government imposing all of that was a libertarian response, because I seem to remember pointing out how all of that was purely a gross authoritarian overreaction. I seem to remember pointing out the FDA and CDC and how from the get-go their regulations destroyed the productive and retooling efforts of companies that make masks, companies that make ventilators that we ended up not needing, or companies that make vodka, and how they were unable to retool and begin making hand sanitizer when we needed it because FDA regulations forced them to ruin their equipment by adding a denaturant to the product. Or the testing kits private companies were ready to deploy and it was all held up by the FDA, which again, at the beginning of this pandemic, you could have had a lot more people aware of the fact that they had COVID if they had testing kits readily available. And that could have had a drastic difference in how much it spread over time. I remember pointing these things out from the beginning, and from what I've been told, as I said, the earlier you can react to a potential pandemic, the better it is, and that positive effect of acting early will reverberate and grow through time. Well, the market was ready and willing to react, but it was government that prevented it from reacting, so it's too bad that libertarians advocate for a government that constrains private businesses so much. Or do I have that wrong? I think I do. I think it's this guy that has it wrong. Or how about doctors not being recognized across state lines, and when New York needed more doctors, they lost precious time because of, again, stupid government rules. Not sure how any of this is libertarian. Or how about that fear that hospitals were going to be overrun? Well, libertarians have been saying long before COVID-19 was ever even a thing that certificates of need for hospitals need to go. Those, of course, are the government-approved certificates that you need in order to even build a hospital. Most of those, by the way, are decided upon by other hospitals, so current hospitals get to decide whether competition can come around and maybe provide a better service to people or offer lower costs or anything like that. So hospitals get to be involved in the decision as to whether they have to deal with all that competition, free market nonsense. So that's a nice little favor government's giving out to them. But I don't think that has anything to do with libertarianism, again. And I think maybe if people took libertarians' advice and got rid of that stuff long ago, you never would have had to worry about the hospitals being overrun in the first place, which never happened anyway, but that's besides the point. So really, this is one of those tweets where I scratch my head and say to myself, this is either a troll or this has to be one of the worst takes I've ever seen. I think the government has overreacted so insanely that more and more people are getting sick of it and not really listening to them or actively fighting against them, which is great to see. Because I wouldn't have minded if government gave some guidelines from the beginning. Like, that wouldn't have bothered me too much. It would have been, okay, whatever. If they had said, you know, hey, if you're an elderly person, it's smart to avoid crowds. Sanitize your hands when you come home, have someone deliver your groceries for you. Maybe don't shake hands with people for a while. No, instead we got a government that nuked our economy. And the pain of that will make COVID seem like a pinprick. And just to be clear to the guy who tweeted this, no, none of what has happened is libertarianism in any sense. I don't know who you've been talking to or what you've been reading, but I can assure you it's wrong. But that's all for now. Like and subscribe. Take it easy.